Hey, what's up everyone? Thank you for tuning in part 2 of my Chevy 1500 HD rebuild. If you're just joining us now, you might want to check out part 1 where I go over the actual vehicle itself. It has a few issues. We got some paint issues, mirror's not good, trims, needs tires. Something actually fell on that tailgate which damaged it completely, so that needs to get addressed. And it needs a lot of maintenance. The fuel gauge is not working. So in part 1 we go over all these things. I give a brief engine wash to the truck to be able to work on it without all that dirt. The fuel tank comes down to replace the fuel pump, which has the setting unit. I replace the oil and I get to work with it. I suggest you watch part 1 just to catch up. If this is the first time you tune into the channel, thank you for watching. My name is Victor. I'm Vic Fixit, and I dedicate myself to buying, fixing, and selling these vehicles. Now, some of them are long-term, some are short-term, but for the most part, I take you through the whole process of where I buy them, how much I pay for them, what is my total hours into them, and what's the profit. We will go over all the numbers and time spent in part 3, where I finish this actual 1500 HD repair. Okay, so this is what I wanted to see, how good this paint was, and of course it's going to be perfect because 2002 paint, 2024 paint, after the sun and elements outside, you're going to see that discoloration. But eventually we're going to paint correct the whole truck and hopefully we'll be able to blend it in and bring it close to this finish. So now what I'm going to do is continue on to the roof, the hood, and the tailgate to get ready for paint. Now here you can really see how the South Florida sun takes its toll on the clear coat. It completely damaged it on that side and it was time to start prepping it. So I bring out the sander and it's time to sand this hood completely down. Now you can see after I gave it a 800 grit and that was dry. I also had Vic Jr. help me out and sand down the fender flares along with Vic Sr., which is my dad. He also gave me a hand to get this thing going, and then we did the actual roof of the truck, and that got sanded down since we're going to be painting the roof, the hood, and also the tailgate's going to get painted since it was damaged. Now we had everything sanded down, it was time to use Prep All, which is to remove all the debris on the hood from the sanding down, and that really gets it clean. I like to give several passes to make sure that it's completely wiped down correctly. Next I use a tack cloth, which removes any imperfections or microfibric particles that will damage the final results. So you really want to go over this one and take your time with it to make sure any imperfection is actually cleaned off. Now that we have everything prepped, now it's time for our primer. So you want to actually mix it correctly, and it's usually a 2-to-1 or maybe a 4-to-1. So you got to get one of the measuring cups, and usually at your paint supplier they will give these for free. So you just follow the instructions, since some primers are actually different than others, and mix correctly. that everything has been primered, it's time to sand it down with 800 grit. Now this is going to be done with a dry sandpaper, and I go over the hood, the fender flares, and the tailgate just to make sure I'm ready for the actual paint itself. Now that our primer is ready, it's time to start mixing the paint. Now again, just follow your instructions on what ratio you're actually going to be mixing, and you're trying to get the best results possible. So I did use a different gun for my primer, a different gun for my base coat, and I will be using a different gun for my clear coat. Again, this is done outdoors, so there's only so much of a good result you'll have, but you'll be surprised at what type of results you could actually get if you take your time. Hey, good morning everyone. After a long 8.5 hours of painting this thing, it's next day and these are the results. I'm gonna start peeling everything so we can see how good of a match it actually came out to be. So the color match is not bad. Not bad. Now it's time to put everything back. Now this is a good thing about test fitting all the hinges, the actual handle itself, to make sure that the fitment's going to be right. And now it's just a simple matter of bolting everything back on, and I know it's going to fit perfectly. Now this circular wheel was an amazing product. I've got it off Amazon for about $10. I had my dad give me a big hand with it. I did a small panel and then he finished off the rest, and it worked really well. I'll leave the description in the link below, but very helpful tool. Okay, and these are the results that we have right now after we stripped everything and we gave it a 2500 grit wet sand. So you can still see it's a little shiny here. Didn't want to take out too much because I'm going to be going over it with a 3000. But before I do that, I want to direct my attention to the hood and the tailgate, and we're going to wet sand that now. I made sure to actually clean with water and soap the hood of where I was going to sand down, and I started with a 1500 grit, then I worked myself to 2000, and then eventually 3000 wet sand to be able to take all the imperfections that the paint actually has after I let it dry for maybe, I think it was 4 days. So one thing, I'm not sure if you noticed, but when we first put water on it, it would just stay stagnant. Now if you notice how it just flows, the paint is no longer such a rough texture. Now this is the tailgate before being sanded down. So that's how it looks after we did 1000 grit. Now we'll do the 1500. Now we're gonna go ahead and do 2000. Okay, and lastly, we'll do a 3000 grit. Now that we have the hood wet sanded, and this portion here where we took out those side moldings, we already got to 3000 sand grit, and we also have the tailgate wet sanded with 3000 grit. Now it's time to really get all the imperfections out of the paint, so we're gonna give it a good wash just to get it ready for our kit, which we're gonna be using here shortly from Chemical Guys. This is the clay bar, and we're gonna start the process to decontamination. Now the Chemical Guys kit brings the microfiber towel, the clay bar lube itself, the clay bar, a butter wax, but we won't be using it, a clean slate that you apply right before doing anything, and the butter wax that we won't be using. So give it a good shake and make sure to actually spray the surface really well. I got a little stuck since I did not spray the actual clay bar itself, but make sure you lube it really well and go back and forth. That's gonna trap small particles that are trapped inside the paint, and that's what we want. We want to release all those things. Now you can see how dirty that one fender was, and the idea is to do the whole truck itself, and as you see it get dirty, you just roll it in and it cleans itself up. Now thank you for tuning in to part 2. Here's where we'll leave it off. We're just gonna finish the actual clay bar. In the next episode, we give all the final touches and you'll see this thing complete. Thank you for watching.